Welcome to the Gold Collar Investor Podcast with your host, Pancham Gupta. This podcast is dedicated to helping the high-paid professionals to break out of the Wall Street investments and create multiple income streams. Here is your host, Pancham Gupta.
Welcome to the Gold Collar Investor Podcast. This is your host, Pancham. Really appreciate you for tuning in today. My guest today is Alex Harbo. Alex is a short-term rental developer and manager. He was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. He served in the Marine Corps for 4.5 years, where he was stationed in Washington, D.C. as part of Marine Corps Honor Guard. He left the Marine Corps at 22 years old to pursue his career as a real estate professional. He's the founder and CEO of Sargon Investments, and he has a goal of developing 650 cabins in the next 3 years. Alex holds a MBA with a concentration in real estate development and is currently finishing a doctorate in business with a concentration in leadership. He's the host of YouTube channel Alex Builds, where he teaches the ins and outs of short-term development and management. Alex, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on.
I was super excited to have you on here and talk about short-term rentals. That's one topic that has come up so much especially after COVID, when people actually wanted to go and find different places to live. And I know personally, my brother-in-law, he lives in New York City. He went out to Hamptons and he did an Airbnb for 3 months in the summer. So it got exploded, especially after COVID. So before we get started, are you ready to fire up my listeners' breakout of Wall Street investments?
Let's do it.
Let's do this. So Alex, before we get started, tell my listeners about your background and how you actually got started into this short-term rental business.
Yeah, so I served in the Marine Corps for 4.5 years. That was mainly stationed in Washington, D.C. And sort of towards the end of my enlistment, I just got to a point where I sort of just wanted to branch off and do my own thing. So last year in the military, I was looking into different types of things I could do. And then I came across real estate and then just started doing a lot of reading on real estate, different types of the different classes of real estate. And I came across someone on YouTube that was doing short-term rentals. This was back in 2015. And it just intrigued me. I liked what caught me was like the creativity of it, and also just the cash flow. I mean, the cash flows even back then were crazy. And I mean, even today they're getting better. But so I had that person I was following at the time. I had reached out to him and through his YouTube channel and scheduled like a one-on-one call, and just like had paid him for his time. And we were talking about different markets and blah, blah, blah. And he was actually the one who helped me. He had recommended 3 different markets for short-term rentals, because that's what I decided I wanted to get into. And one of them was Asheville, North Carolina. And at the time I was engaged. Now I'm married. But my fiance absolutely loved the city. And then, I mean, there's just so much to do here. But it was also just a solid short-term rental market as well. And so, yeah, I moved here, got my real estate license. I was a real estate agent for a couple of years. Didn't really enjoy it that much. I mean, I was just helping people get short-term rentals or purchase short-term rentals or invest in them, but I wasn't doing any of it. So I decided to purchase okay, I want to actually do what I moved here to do. So I started looking at different properties. My price range was not that high. It was like under 200,000 at the time, so 6-7 years ago. And I just couldn't find anything in my price range that I felt like would do well as a short-term rental. So I just decided to build my first property. So my very first real estate investment was a new construction development, 900 square foot A-frame that we still own to this day. And just 1 turned into 2 turned into 4, started bringing on investor capital from friends and family initially. And then this year we're working on 17 developments. And then we also purchase as well. I like to purchase properties that have some acreage tied to them, where we can develop more properties next to them. But yeah, that's essentially how I started. And now my full-time gig is just management, development and management of the property. So I don't push off the management to a third party. We take care of the management in-house.
For the short-term rentals?
Yes. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Well, I have so many questions on all of these things that you mentioned. I know it was a quick background there. So you were you were stationed in DC and you started listening to some YouTube channels. You get intrigued and you kind
Right.
of call the guy who you like on YouTube, right? And then you actually pay him. Did you hire him as a coach right
No,
away?
just a couple sessions. It was like maybe 200 an hour for this time. I'm sure now it's way more. But it was just initial questions that I had. I had a general understanding. I had read a couple short-term rental, or probably the only two short-term rental books at the time. There weren't really too much like content book-wise. So I knew enough that I could have a working conversation with someone about short-term rentals, but not to a point where I felt completely comfortable like diving into a market.
Yeah, no, that is quite awesome. Like, one question I have here, which more for the audience, a lot of people kind of feel it's very hard for some people to actually go out and pay someone to get that kind of knowledge that you did, right? So did you have any hesitation about that, or you were just like, oh, you know what, that was just natural for you? Did you have to train your mind to kind of, you know,
I
do
would
that?
I would say no because of the Marine Corps. Like I understood the importance of having a mentor because I had so many great mentors when I was in the military. So I was coming from that background of I mean, just having the right mentor can set you decades ahead of your competition or whoever, or where you are currently, not even your competition. So I understood the importance of having a mentor.
Got it.
And as I became more successful in the last 6 7 years, I mean, just the amount of money that I end up spending on mentors is directly correlated to how much success I've had. I've had one-on-one mentors that I pay 30,000 a year to, but I know that I'm going to make that money back 3 or 4 times over in the year.
That is so true. I'm glad that you mentioned that, and the amount, right? It's if someone asks me like how much you've spent on your education, and I tell
Yeah,
them,
absolutely.
I tell them that I've probably spent more money after I graduated from my master's. If I were to combine all the money from kindergarten to my master's and add it all up, I've spent more than that just in 1 year, as meant, to hire someone to help. And like you said, it is paid, uh, you know, X number of folds, like in some cases, 10 folds,
Yeah, and especially in the real estate game development, even like even more, it like mistakes mean money, and especially with these bigger deals that you want to tackle. I mean, it's pretty easy to get set back 10, 20, 30,000 because you just don't know what you don't know, and that's what a mentor can help you with. And what I realized over the years is there's a difference between, say, like a course, so like just purchasing a course maybe for $1,000, $2,000, than being in a mastermind and then having a one-on-one mentor. And then you can have a one-on-one mentor in different parts of your life, whether it be mindset or your actual business, say like the business operations. So
Exactly. So going back to your story, he mentions three markets. One of them was Asheville, North Carolina. Do you remember the other two?
somewhere in Delaware that looked very similar and to where I grew up in Gloomy.
Mhm.
I don't know. That was the only other market that I remember. I think the other one might have been like Destin, Florida, which is still a phenomenal short-term rental market.
Oh, I
But
loved it.
I figured that Asheville's a little less seasonal. Like it's a year-round market. We still
Yeah.
have our high season here, but I mean, I still cash flow pretty good in the winters as well.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. So now you went there, you moved to Asheville, and then you were priced out pretty much. You said, okay, let me develop. How did that come about? Like, did you go out, start looking for land, or did you find someone who was already developing and you just bought something that was already in the works? Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, so I was working out at a gym here. I was working very part-time as well as a personal trainer while I was doing the real estate thing. And one of the personal trainers had just gotten his GC license. He was already a GC or not a GC. He'd already worked in construction for 20 years, but decided to get his license. And he got his GC license to help or to build his family's house, like a house for his family. And I sort of stepped in the middle. I was like, hey, would you like to build this for me, make some money, and blah, blah, blah. And he agreed to it. I mean, we still 6 years later, we still have we're still doing bigger and bigger deals together. But yeah, it was that. And then I already had my real estate license, so I had an understanding of how to purchase a property. But I did bring my GC along with me for the first couple of deals. The first couple.
You mean the
land
land?
deals. Yeah. Just so I did go out and purchase land, and we can talk about like the right way to purchase land and stuff in a second here. But yeah, that's essentially what I did. Is a GC sort of fell in my lap a little bit. Not fell in my lap, but I had approached him, and he agreed to it. It wasn't a massive project. It was just the project that was in my price range. And at the time, you can get new construction loans with 10% down, where you could tie the land into the loan. Today, with the lending environment and interest rates going up, that's sort of going away temporarily.
Right. All right. So for anyone listening, right, how does this model work for you? If you can define one project, pick whatever, and if you can use numbers on like what it cost you to build the land or buy the land and build, and then cash out, refinance that particular after it's built.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what your payment was, and now after you do short-term rental, like what kind of returns are you kind of
yeah, so let me take everyone back to sort of the principles of developing sort of these unique properties. So we developed an A-frame. What I realized is log cabins do really well in mountain markets and wooded markets.
What is an A-frame? What is an A-frame?
An A-frame is literally like, imagine like a church, like it literally like an A-frame is
Oh yeah,
like
got it. Okay.
the property is like for people who are just listening, it's like I'm creating it's a triangle. It's a triangle house is what I call them, but they're very unique. And what I realized, and so Airbnb is one of the places we list our properties. Airbnb just had a massive update. They do their summer update every year. And it sort of played into our strategy of what we do. So I like to develop unique cabins. So unique cabins to the point, like what makes them unique? So what I've realized, A-frames, some sort of theme, like to the property, a log cabin, does something about log cabins, mountain views, and a hot tub. Like people, that's what they like. If you're on the coast, you want to be close to the water and blah, blah, blah. But what I realize is people who are coming into the short-term rental game, they're just going into any type of like hot market and purchasing any type of property, whether it be like a small little property that a family would live in, calling it a cottage or a tiny house and just renting it out as a short-term rental. For now, that's going to do well, but I predicted it 4 years ago that I think that as more and more properties hit the market, that the unique properties are going to do better. And last week, Airbnb had a massive update where you can actually choose, instead of choosing like your dates, you can choose your dates, but you can essentially not put a location in, but choose like if you want to do a cabin or an A-frame. There's actually a button you can click for A-frames now, and tree houses and all these different unique stays, and then it'll tell you like how close the property is to you,
Wow.
depending on an actual address. But I'm a huge believer in, before I go through the numbers, I'm a huge believer in the property has to be an experience in itself. I call them like Instagrammable properties. That for some reason, the property ends up doing way better than if I just built a normal house.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, so with the first A-frame, we built for about $200 a square foot, roughly. All in all, the 900 square foot cabin that can sleep 6 people. So it's 2 bedrooms, and then so the bedroom upstairs, bedroom downstairs, and then a queen pull-out couch, like a nice queen pull-out couch, can sleep 6 people. Very open floor plan. Even has a balcony on the inside. That one, all in all, with purchasing the land, cost about $250,000 to build. Our mortgage payment was, before I refinanced, was $1,200 a month. If you don't include cleanings, because the guest pays the cleaning, Our with internet, electricity, and everything, our bills were probably about $1,500 a month, and it was cash flowing. It still is. In the summers, about 7,000 a month it grosses, and then during our high season, which is leaf season, it can push close to 9 grand, which is what it did last year. So I
Nice.
mean,
So
there's
you're netting like 7 grand in a high season and 5 grand in a approximately
a
a
month.
month. Yeah.
Yeah, a month. So last year we netted about 52,000, and my initial investment on that, again, they don't, the loans right now are anywhere between 70 to 75%. They're not the mythical 90 that I got.
Yeah.
But I think I put probably 10 grand into furnishings and about 16 or 17,000 down initially. So say 30 grand, a round number. I was in it about 30 grand, and essentially the first year we netted 52,000 or 50,000 the first year. So I mean, 100 and whatever percent return ROI on our cash. And yeah, the cool thing about the land, I learned a lot with just, there's a lot of money in land investing as well. So I learned some of the intricacies when it comes to how to structure a deal, like a land deal. So this specific parcel was two 2-acre parcels that were connected to each other. And we were purchasing them for 45,000 for two 2-acre parcels, and they both had a mountain view. And we were able to get one side to appraise for essentially so 2 acres to appraise for the purchase price. We're essentially we were able to write a contract for $1 for the other parcel,
Wow.
and we essentially got the other parcel for free at closing. And then I just turned around once I got my certificate of occupancy for that first cabin. I just turned around, went to another bank, and used that land as down payment to build 2 more cabins. So my ROI on those cabins is essentially infinite, because just the money, I mean,
Yeah.
besides what I put in furnishing costs, yeah, it's practically infinite, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So so now you have, fast forward, you pretty much are doing the same thing. Why change anything if it's working, right? So you're on to your 17th project, you said.
Yeah, what I realized is, and this is, I don't have to get too, I'm not going to get too into detailed with like my county rules and everything, but
Yeah.
essentially if you build more than 10 cabins in the same area, in terms of like everything's being adjacent to each other, so right next, connected to each other, you need to get a hotel permit. So what I realized is the best use of my time, as long as I can raise the capital and get qualified for the loan, my GC can take on the work. The best use of my time is, there's no difference between me going out and looking at a 2-acre parcel or looking at a 15-acre parcel. It's the same amount of time I'm spending. There might be a couple extra steps, but it's all done in an office for me. When it comes to actually looking for the land, it's really not that big of a difference in time. So right now I like to do anywhere between 2 cabins if the numbers work, but I really like to do like 6 cabins at a time, which is what we have 2 projects that we're doing 6 at a time, and other projects that we're doing, say, like 4 at a time, just because like if we did 6, they'd be clustered together. But yeah, I just essentially I slowly grew over the course of, say, like the last 6 years, but I didn't go like crazy. But I do eventually want to do, say, like a 40 to 50 cabin community, I'm calling it like a boutique resort, where probably in the next 6 months I'll be putting together a short-term rental fund and syndicating a deal like that.
Nice, nice. All right, so let's talk about the management side, right?
Yeah.
You're local to your own market, right?
Yeah.
You're not doing remote management. So do you have a completely separate team? Did you set up initially when you started? Did you have just you who's taking care of listings, and you probably had a cleaning crew come in afterwards and clean up and all that? So how much of your personal time were you spending back then, and what do you do now when it comes to management?
Yeah, phenomenal question. And this actually, I can show you the 2 big differences between, we closed on a property a couple weeks ago, beautiful 3,200 square foot log cabin. And that one can probably sleep like 12 to 14 people. And the difference in systems between my first cabin and my A-frame compared to this one is night and day. The biggest thing is I've hired out so I don't I ship everything to the property. And if like in terms of the furniture, in terms of everything from Amazon, Walmart, Wayfair, everything is, I don't touch any of that. And then if I'm developing, it goes to say like a warehouse that I just pay like a monthly rent for. And then if it goes to a warehouse, if it goes to the property, I'm hiring people to put together the furniture. That was a big thing that was taking a lot of my time, is I essentially have a checklist of everything. And you'll be surprised, a lot of the stuff, especially in today, there's a lot of automation tools. So automating your messaging, automating your check-in process.
Yeah.
I played with the idea of hiring someone boots on the ground for a very long time, like an operations manager. But after talking to multiple mentors, I just came to and talking to a lot of people. I'm a coach for a short-term rental mastermind as well. And talking to some of those coaches that are in the mastermind, I just realized I didn't need an operations manager, a boots on the ground operations manager. And the reason being is because your cleaning crew is up there 2 to 3 times a week anyways. So why they can inspect the property for you. You just have that conversation for them and pay them a little bit extra. Your boots on the ground for me, or my boots on the ground, is my cleaning crew. And then if something is wrong, I have a part-time maintenance person. Outside of that, you don't really need anyone. Especially now, you can hire virtual assistants that have worked directly for Airbnb and Marriott in the past. You can pay them a little more, but it's really not that much. Like I realized, not realized, just me learning through another coach in this mastermind, that you can hire these Airbnb, Marriott, who have worked their previous employees with Airbnb and Marriott for relatively cheap, and they can handle each virtual assistant can handle anywhere between 12 to 15 properties, just on the messaging side. So most of my messaging is automated. And then say like the 20 to 30% that's not automated, someone else takes care of it. But when it actually comes to having people on staff, I really don't have a big team. And I mean, I've done that on purpose. Just because, I mean, I'm have an obsession with automation at this point. Like my GC is not an employee of mine. He could be an employee of mine, but just it gives me more flexibility, and obviously gives him more flexibility as well. But yeah, my team is not that large. My cleaning crew is not. I sub that cleaning crew out to a third party, essentially. Like it's not done in house. And then I just charge the guest, just gets charged the cleaning fee.
Right.
But I've been able to scale pretty significantly without having on staff anyone besides honestly a part-time maintenance person. Now, once I get to 50 properties, I will probably have an operations manager, a boots on the ground operations manager. But the beauty about the market that I'm in right now is you can go an hour, if you draw an hour-and-a-half circle driving distance, there's about 6 to 7 other short-term rental markets within that hour-and-a-half that an operations manager can go to. And that's the beauty about mountain markets and stuff.
Got it. So question on that furniture stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, like, does every single one of your cabin look the same? If not, like, who does the interior designing part of it? Like,
Good question.
right? Like it's an art to really have. You have to have an eye for it. Maybe you do, and then you have a list of items already that you want to purchase, right? And that you just go and boom, 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 order and done. Look at the list and it's done. Or is it like very unique to that property? Every single time you have to come up with some new stuff, and who does that?
Yeah, so good question. And I recently started using this. Again, I think the real estate industry as a whole is usually the last industry to catch on to the tech stuff.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing. It's just real estate's a permanent asset. Like it's on the foundation,
slow,
blah, blah, blah.
steady.
It's not like crypto or stocks where you can easily move it around. And I actually just ran into this I had a hot tub delivery today, and I wasn't on site. And they wouldn't take a credit card. They were just like cash or check. So it's a real estate's a very old school still, especially us here in the mountains. But going back to your question about interior design, so there's a service, and everyone can use this here. It's called Modsy, modsy.com. And you can literally, they have an app, you can scan your entire property for them. So you take videos, It's $350 for a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and I think it's like $40 extra per bedroom. You scan everything, and then you are assigned to a one-on-one interior designer who puts together everything for you. And then they will send you all of the links and their affiliate links. So that's they make money on the back end there, which is completely fine with me. And then they will also give you discounts on top of that with like Wayfair or whoever. If they find it, I don't know if they work through Amazon, they might. But I've only used them for like the big items like Wayfair and stuff. But that can get you about 70 to 80% there. And everything else, like in terms of, I like to color match all like my kitchen stuff. So like if it's a log cabin, I like to go with like cups with like a tint or something on them. But on the interior design stuff, I was getting quoted a percentage with some people like locally. They were like, okay, 5% of the project, 10% of the project, almost like a GC.
Yeah.
And that was just too much. If I have a budget, say like a large project, and I have a budget of like 35 grand to furnish a 5-bedroom property, I don't want to pay 5 grand to an interior designer to put everything together. So Modsy's been a game changer for me on that end. And I am constantly looking for new tools anytime. Same thing with like put together, like going on the construction side, putting together our floor plans and everything. So I'll get like, if I find, say, like a floor plan or a property that I like on Instagram, I found a service that I don't know where they're based out of, but I can send them that property that I just have a picture of, and they can put together a floor plan for me. It might not be 100% exact, but we can play around with the actual floor plan. But everything's been about
What's that
automation.
service?
So it's called getasiteplan.com. We originally used it for site plans, but they also do floor plans as well. But again, going back to the interior design thing, Modsy has been an absolute game changer. And on top of them recommending what it should look like, they will literally send you the links of everything as well. So you can just add to cart, add to cart. I use Wayfair Professional as well. So people don't know, there's a business side to Wayfair where you're assigned an account representative. I actually talked to mine this morning. And this is it's a completely free service, but you just need a business EIN, which is really simple. I mean, just a business license. And they ask you what industry you're in. And then based off that, they customize your dashboard for you. So my dashboard shows short-term rentals and hotels. And what you can do is you can send your representative pictures, say like you work with Modsy, and you can use those links, but there are some things that like I didn't like that Modsy had done, say like just 1 bedroom, it wasn't the whole property. So I called my representative up and said, hey, this is what the property looks like. I emailed her pictures. If you can find me things that are similar to that, and within like 24, 48 hours, I have a list of things that I can choose from based off of a price range I have and everything. So Wayfair Professional has been super helpful too, and they can get you discounts as well beyond normal Wayfair.
Wow, I learned so much from that. Let me ask you this:
a fire hose.
That one, Modsy. Let me ask you now. This is where I'm getting little selfish, and I'm asking for myself now.
Just helping everyone at the end of the day.
So, Modsy, would you use that service if you want to use your own home, or would you design your own home, or would you, in that case, prefer an interior designer?
Yeah, so I have asked them that question. So they'll only do the interior design after you sort of have an idea of what the structure looks like. So I've honestly leaned pretty hard on Instagram and Pinterest. If I see a property I like, I screenshot it, add it to a folder on my phone, and then from there I'll send those pictures over to the floor plan people. They can get the floor plans done within like, I think, 48 to 72 hours, just ridiculous timelines, especially now coming out of COVID. And I feel like things are still a little slow to find people who can do floor plans for you at a 24-hour notice within 3 days is crazy. So my whole process is pretty simple, and it's not like you're going to read this in a book. I do screenshots of properties that I like. I send them over. I get floor plans done, and I'm constantly having floor plans done. I have projects that are constantly just like, I have like maybe 30 floor plans here behind this desk or this dresser right here. And from there, I send once the floor plan is done, I send that to Modsy, and we can talk about like a color scheme and everything. Or I can just wait for the property to be actually built and then then do that. So I have a
Got
general
it.
budget of what each bedroom, like anywhere between 1,500 to 2,000, I'll dedicate to a bedroom.
Got it. Got it. Well, that's great. So, this is awesome. Do you have uh, any other things that you want to talk about before we move on to the second part of the show? I do have one more question for you, but
Yeah.
that's totally different.
I would say for the biggest thing who are people who are trying to go out and actually do this themselves. And I'll actually say two more things before your last question is when you're trying to do this yourself, think about the guest experience, not just the property itself. Think about the guests. So like we live in mainly a drive-in city. We have a small airport. People are mainly driving to our market.
Correct.
Always think about the guest experience. So what does the drive look like to the guest? Are they, you don't want your guests to be driving down 20, 30 minutes down a gravel road. They're going to get annoyed before they even get to your property. A lot of times they're driving in at night. They just came off of a road. They're coming at the end of their road trip. They're in a new area that they don't know. You don't want them to have like a little sketchy drive to the property. So I always like to be off of a double lane state maintained road. And that's been a game changer. And obviously having high speed internet, even with these smaller properties is very important. So that plays into our land analysis as well. And the final tool that I actually use that you had said a lot of people who are listening are in the tech industry. I use a service, and I think some of your listeners will appreciate this service. I use a service called StayFi. And what StayFi is, it's a little disk that plugs into the back of your router. And what that does is you can set a landing page for people. Imagine that you're going to Starbucks, you're going to the airport, you have to log into the Wi-Fi to use the Wi-Fi. It's the same thing here. People have to put in their email addresses. You do get the email address of the person who actually books the property, but say if you have a property that can sleep 14 people,
Yeah.
you're not getting all their email addresses. So it's email capture. It also protects you from the guest doing anything illegal on your thing, but it also makes you look legit and very professional. We have a custom landing page for each one of our properties. And it's a very cheap service. I think it's like $10 a month per property, but that allows us to then remarket to our guests outside of Airbnb and VRBO, which is a very powerful tool. Because I can see that like some people do get annoyed with the service fees that come with Airbnb and VRBO. Mainly on the guest side, the guest pays a big portion of those service fees. And we're working in the next year to put a back-end platform, a direct booking platform that the guests can actually use. So they come through us through Airbnb, VRBO, and then we get their email address, and then we send out maybe seasonal emails, like one every 3 months leading up to, say, like a 4th of July or something. Hey, if you want to stay with us, blah, 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 like you can save this much in service fees. And I think things are coming full circle with the short-term rental stuff, because that's originally how it used to be. The only way to get a short-term rental was to actually call up a place and book. So that's a bit of full circle, but we'll always be using Airbnb and VRBO, but it's not illegal to take them off the platform after they've stayed with you. It's illegal to try to do it before they book with you through the platform, through Airbnb. But there's nothing wrong with taking them off of Airbnb after they've stayed with you.
Right. Now, those are some amazing tips, and anyone listening, want to kind of find out how to really run Airbnb. Alex is the man here, especially if you're managing, if you're local. I had one guest long time back. I don't know if you know him, Tim Herbert. I was in the 40s. He manages his properties in the US, and he lives in Medellin, Colombia. So it's a completely different way of doing the same, like Airbnb. So, but that StayFi thing is so cool. I actually didn't know that, and that there is it definitely makes it look very legit. And then now you can remarket, and that email address is such a
it's like you're applying digital marketing principles to real estate. Again, real estate is slow to catch on to these trends. So just reading like the russellbrunson.com secrets, the secrets trilogy and stuff. And it's like, okay, how can I apply these digital marketing principles to my real estate business?
Right. Well, great. Thank you, Alex, for that. Let me ask you this one last question. Do you have a morning routine that you follow? If so, what is it? And do you think that it attributes to your success?
Yeah, actually, I follow The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. You can't really see it. That picture back there is when I met him at the Bigger Pockets conference right there.
Okay.
But that was really cool. I've been practicing that for 7 years. I haven't been on it recently the last couple weeks. I'll completely admit to that.
Why
But
is
for
that?
people, I've just been so busy with my other deals. Like I've just been getting up at the time I usually get up and going straight to work. I know what I need to achieve sometimes. I use the Miracle Morning to sort of reset my compass if I feel like I'm sort of getting out. But for people who don't know Miracle Morning, it's the acronym is SAVER. So silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and then scribing. Scribing just being writing. Scribing, I do the 5-minute journal. Silence, I actually do the Wim Hof method for the silence, the meditation, because I can't, my brain's scattered, man. It's scattered all the time. I can't just sit. So I do the Wim Hof breathing techniques, and then all the other stuff is just what the book, The Miracle Morning, teaches. But scribing the 5-minute journals has been really cool. I can take that book with me anywhere. And then Wim Hof, that takes me about 10-15 minutes, which is how long it would be for meditation anyways. And then
Yeah,
yoga. I recently took up yoga at the end of my day just to help me de-stress a couple times a week.
got it. Well, Savers has been a savior, at
Yeah,
least,
absolutely.
for me. And believe it or not, I use 5-minute journal too, and I'm pretty religious about it.
Yeah, and
So
what I love about that is you mentioned miracle. You mentioned morning. What's incredibly important is also sitting down for 10 minutes the night before to plan, especially if we're entrepreneurs, and just in any type of industry, but definitely entrepreneurs where we have to essentially create our own schedule, at least when you're first starting. But it's super important to sit down for 10 minutes the evening of into the next day and just plan out your day. That will set you up even better for whatever morning routine you have.
absolutely, I can't even tell you so many. You can say they were all coincidences, but I've written stuff uh, the day off in the
Right.
morning, and that I hope, like, there's this second question, which is, what would make your day great, or something like that,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. What would you have done different, or what would have made it? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whatever that was. So I would write something and really visualize it, right? And it happens. It just
Yeah.
happens, and it's crazy. Cool. Well, thank you, Alex. So let's move on to the second part of the show, Alex. This is, I call, taking the leap round. I asked these four questions to every guest on my show. My first question for you is, when was the first time you invested outside of Wall Street? Was it that condo, or not, that A-frame that you built?
Yeah, that was my first one. I did the retail arbitrage method a little bit for Airbnb. That's how I sort of saved up the down payment for that first property. But the one that actually where my name or my business name was on the mortgage, that was, yeah, my first A-frame,
Got it.
which is like the crown jewel of not the crown jewel, but definitely the one that does really, really well.
Got it. Got it. Did you have any fears that you had to overcome when you actually built that? You had a new GC, like,
Oh
you
yeah,
never did
absolutely.
it before. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a major misconception that like people who are successful don't have like fears of like you just have to. I think the fears tend to go away with experience, especially with some success, and then also going through some failures too and coming out of those failures. But I definitely had fears developing my first property, because like when you're breaking ground and putting in foundation, you never know what you're running into until you actually do it. But I
how,
mean,
how did
that's
you,
where you lean on the team.
yeah, how did you overcome that? Did you, like, your mentors and all that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things too where you just you do your analysis, you put a contingency in place in your budget, like say like a 10% contingency. That's usually pretty normal. Every lender handles that a little different where it's built into the budget. But that can help you. And then just getting on the business side a little bit, just having access to lines of credit helps too, like business lines of credit in case you do go over. That helped me. And then just, yeah, mentors just telling me that I was either doing the right thing or the wrong thing.
Got it. Got it. So my third question, can you share with us one investment that did not go as expected?
Yeah. and it's actually a recent one. So we were purchasing 4 properties, and I never present a property that is not under contract. And that's been a rule that I've followed, that I've never been burned on, but I just didn't want to be embarrassed. I'll never present a project to an investor if it's not under contract. And that's, to people who have been in real estate, that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
And I broke that rule very recently, a couple months ago, and I just got burned for it. It was 4 properties. It was right across it's 5 minutes away from the city. And it's also right across the street from an $18 million park development that just happened. That they just opened this park, the city park. 4 brand new properties that were built as short-term rentals, all in the same area. Like, they were all right next to each other. The deal was for like 2.4 million. And I needed to find an investor to bring about 700,000 or 800,000 to the table. I had a list of people that I called, but the sellers were just dragging us on to a point where like 4 or 5 weeks of constant follow-up between me, my agent, and them, ended up getting to a point where I actually met all the partners. There were 4 partners in the deal. They built these properties as short-term rentals, and they just ended up stepping away because their budget was done prior to COVID, and then things just went crazy, obviously. And I shook all their hands, and which I usually never meet the sellers of these deals in person,
Right.
until we're under contract, at least. So I shook all their hands. We agreed on terms, agreed on price, agreed on timelines, due diligence, earnest money, everything. That was a Friday. We said we were going to get under contract Monday. And then during the weekend, they ended up shopping my deal around to other people. Like, so they just took whatever my terms were and they shopped it around. And they essentially told us that, like, they were in a multiple offer situation like that Monday with like 4 other people. So I felt pretty burned on that. And then during the weekend, I had presented it to an investor that was ready to essentially go through with the deal, show him my pro forma and everything. I didn't show the investors I showed the investor my pro forma, not the sellers. But yeah, that was a deal that I recently got burned on. And I learned the lesson of sticking to just never presenting a deal to an investor is just embarrassing, and the deal falling through. And 2, just, I think one of the most important things is when you're first, I mean, I'm not first starting, but when you're first starting, or just not falling in love with the deal. And I'll tell you, it is very hard to do it because short-term rentals are very unique, especially with the properties that we develop and purchase. It's very easy to fall in love with the property because it's not like you're just purchasing an industrial property that you're going to put a tenant in. There is a sexiness to short-term rentals that I think people are attracted to. So I think the biggest thing that I learned from that deal was just not getting emotionally tied to the deal, because I let them drag us on for 5 weeks. I should have just put like a 2 or 3 week expiration on the offer. Yeah, that's essentially what I learned. And beyond that, I mean, they didn't necessarily do anything illegal. We live in a very small city, and I'm sure I'm going to run into these people at the grocery store. So I mean, it's like, was it really worth your name to do all that? But yeah, that's the biggest lesson I learned from a deal that recently went south, was just don't get emotionally attached to a deal. Especially now with higher interest rates, there's going to be more and more deals coming on the market, staying on the market longer.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So my last question for you, Alex, is that what is one piece of advice would you give to people who are listening, who are thinking of investing in Main Street, that is outside of Wall Street?
That's a good question. I would say just make sure that you're vetting your partners properly. There is a lot of for people who are looking to invest passively, obviously there's a lot of syndicators out there. And one of my good friends who has honestly turned into a mentor, more of a friend, both, Paul Moore from Wellings Capital just wrote a phenomenal article on this in Bigger Pockets, is making sure that you're vetting your syndicators properly. There's so many people who are coming into the syndication game, whether it be in short-term rentals, multifamily, self-storage, anything. Just making sure that you're vetting your partners properly, and they do have that experience. Short-term rentals is a little bit different, because up until recently, there weren't too many syndications in the short-term rental world. But just making sure that you're just vetting your syndication partners properly if you're going with a syndication.
Got it. Great piece of advice. Well, Thank you, Alex. This has been pleasure. I learned so many new things here with you on the show. How can listeners connect with you? I know you said that you are already have a YouTube channel, or you.
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel called Alex Builds. I haven't posted. I've posted a lot of my podcast stuff that I've done on there, but I haven't really posted anything in the last couple months because I was redoing my whole studio. But the YouTube channel is Alex Builds. It's just a little logo of a treehouse if you look it up. And people also can reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then also my website, which is sargoninvestments.com. Putting together a course right now for on the real estate development side or short-term rental development side, just because I essentially created a course, or am creating a course I wish this course would have existed when I first started. It's just people are realizing short-term rentals are a good investment, and that's driving prices up. And one of the things that people are turning to is development of short-term rentals. So put together a little course there. We have a wait list on our website for that. And then, yeah, between those three resources, LinkedIn, my YouTube channel, everyone listening should be good to go with on the short-term rental stuff.
Cool. Well, thank you, Alex, so much for coming on the show and sharing your knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Does this excite you to jump into short-term rentals? It has definitely piqued my interest. If you have any interest in this, definitely check out Alex's YouTube channel. And thank you for hopping on. I really appreciate you. If you have any questions, email them to me at p@thegoldcollarinvestor.com. That's P as in Paul at thegoldcollarinvestor.com. This is Pancham signing off. Until next time, take care.
Thank you for listening to the Gold Collar Investor Podcast. If you love what you've heard and you want more of Pancham Gupta, visit us at www.thegoldcollarinvestor.com and follow us on Facebook at The Gold Collar Investor. The information on this podcast are opinions. As always, please consult your own financial team before investing.